Billie Eilish first gained fame in 2015 with her debut single Ocean Eyes, reaching number 72 on the UK single charts. But things have moved on swiftly for Billie since then, with 3 critically acclaimed albums under her belt and international fame. But, weirdly enough, I don't know why. Oh, no, it's not like that. I've heard Billie's music numerous times over the years, especially from my girlfriend when driving, so I know it's good music, but unfortunately, I don't think I've ever been the target demographic. If you stop by my channel before, you'll see that I'm a big fan of synth and alternate pop bands like Always, and then, on the other hand, a big fan of classic rock. So, with an interest in what I'd heard, I wanted to explore more of her music in a variety of ways. So, my name is Will, and this is my analysis of Billie Eilish's music career. So really the first thing I wanted to do when making this video was sort of gather evidence from a bunch of different sources, really to sort of look at the difference of opinions between, say, people that I know, people online, people in the news, and then sort of then look into my own opinion and to sort of come to a conclusion as to why Billie Eilish is so popular. Just to clarify, this isn't to sort of mock Billie or say, I don't like her music, I think it's crap, because I think it's quite reductive to be, just make these big sweeping judgments of people before you've actually listened to their music. So the first person I really wanted to ask was my girlfriend. Yeah, so from her, she basically said that it's very impressive that her and her brother created all this music in a basement, and that they create, write and produce everything, which I think is commendable. I think in an age where, there's a lot of shadow writers and big producers and stuff like that, I think it's great that Billie and Finneas do that together. I think as well, she sort of said that Billie is relatable. She struggles with or has struggled with her mental health, and that she can come across quite humble. And I think this is one of the key takeaways that I've took from just my sort of introductory knowledge that I had already, and plus what I'd heard from my girlfriend, is that she seems like quite a relatable, quite a humble, down-to-earth kind of person, and I think I did want to explore that a bit more. And so the next place that I went was Reddit, and my problem with Reddit is that you can have these subreddits that are dedicated to specific bands or people or things, and so you can tend to introduce a bit of bias into the system with this, because say if I've got a subreddit for the band Always, for example, people on there are going to be really into Always, because why else would you go online to post something about a band unless you really hate them? So it's very polarized in essence, that you're going to get quite strong opinions on either end of the spectrum. But really, from the first comment I saw on, this was a post on True Off My Chest. This was from a post on True Off My Chest, where a user asks, I can't understand why Billie Eilish is so popular. And I think this really kind of, helped me in my search, where, why are we looking at somebody who really dislikes Billie Eilish? But I figured that if we're looking at somebody who is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, maybe we'll be able to see a clear focus on what is actually the reason why people like it, like the polar opposite to this guy's opinion. And he describes, or this user describes Billie as Little Miss Mumbly. And I think this is one of the big things that I've seen for people who dislike her, is that they tend to hone in on her vocal style, which, as we'll come to see later in the video, I don't think is really that relevant. But others described her music as whispery music, which is supposed to be quite popular at the minute, and it's quite, record labels are sort of looking for this because it is quite uncommon. And also other users have stated that, the younger generation wants something that older people can't understand. And I think this instantly sort of unlocked a bit of a core memory in me regarding Skrillex, which if you're old enough, you'll know. But this is sort of I can't even describe it, but to me nowadays, it just feels like noise. But it was something away from the norm, like, people in my childhood were listening to Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, I don't know, Avicii, whatever else, and I was like, oh my god, Skrillex is cool. He's like this unique, making this weird dubstep music, and it's like, I think it makes you feel like you're cool and you're part of a unique club. And I think that's kind of one of the main things I've noticed, especially from looking on Reddit, is the main sort of draw to Billie is that she's creating something that's new and different and comparatively, has this big contrast with what is currently being put on the radio, although you will find Billie's music on the radio, but yeah. Interestingly though, and this is something I'm gonna sort of hone in on when I get to my own opinion, but other users posted that her music soothes their depression and makes them feel less alone. And I think this is one of the big other things that I sort of knew about Billie already, is that she kind of had like a lot of mental health struggles, body image struggles and things like that, and that I wanted to see how other people were sort of taking that. And it seems that from Reddit anyway, that a lot of people find her music very soothing and something helpful for them, I think. Additionally, really the main point here was that a lot of people talk about her personality, style and beliefs, which I think again adds to my point that people like her because has this unique style to her. And I think really, going off of the Reddit search, I wanted to look somewhere a little bit more unbiased, but unfortunately I didn't have the time to conduct interviews or go around asking people what they think or anything like that. So really the only other large-scale source of information I have is the news, which obviously introduces its own problems because articles can portray a message that is biased to the publisher, but it also may kind of hone in on a message that's pervasive at the time. So I think especially there's a Grammy article here that's sort of very positive towards Billie, but I mean some of the older articles very much hone in on her mumbly style and things like that as more of a negative. But one of the things it does say in the Grammy article is that you'd be hard pressed to find anyone like her, and I think that's interesting because, again, her music is very much unique. It's not something you hear all the time. One thing it does sort of bring me back to is Angie McMahon, who was, I think, like I don't want to say like country, but like a kind of country folky type singer. And she was kind of mocked for her voice. I remember looking at YouTube comment sections on her videos, and it was very much along the lines of, oh, another Billie Eilish, why are you mumbling? I can barely understand what you're saying. Is this the new big thing? And I think, again, it's this whole thing of, this is like a nice vocal style that people can get behind because it's relaxing, it's soothing, and I quite like Angie McMahon, and as it goes, I quite like Billie Eilish, but we'll get into that later. Another article describes her as a Gen Z icon, and again, I think that lines up with the point that Billie appeals to depressed, well, not necessarily depressed, but younger people who have or tend to have mental health issues, or it's just that kind of music is drawing these people in, which I think is a good thing, really. I think it gives people a bit more of a voice, especially Gen Z, who sometimes feel a bit lost and a bit sort of like they're not being really listened to, and I think it's good that there's sort of an icon for that. It also states that her style is in contrast to Katy Perry and Taylor Swift, and again, that's why I used those examples previously, is that I think that these are sort of, in my mind anyway, I would have to do my own video on them and really form a proper opinion, but on a surface level, I think these are quite big music giants that almost seem to be not fabricated, but put in the limelight. They've been given every opportunity possible, and also Katy Perry's recent song isn't very good, but and it kind of led me to this question of, is Billie as real as she lets on? And I think this again goes back to that level of contrast. We've got to be critical in our opinions, and not just to believe everything that we see. And I think really it led me down to this path of industry plants, and it's something I'd sort of noticed on TikTok, especially with a band called Wet Leg, which is sort of not in a similar vein to Billie Eilish, because it's very different, kind of a bit rockier music, but you kind of see that they're literally pushed to the front of TikTok. You've got all this like promotion and songs coming out, albums, and then just nothing. And I think that's kind of what I noticed with Wet Leg, is that there was, for a couple of months leading up to their album, it was very much like push, and then nothing. And then an article here describes that Lana Del Rey and Clairo were also labeled as industry plants due to their previous connections. And I think a lot of people really are just overly critical of everything nowadays. And I know I said about it's good to be critical, but there's a level to which I find anyway that's overly critical, and we're just kind of nitpicking everything for the sake of nitpicking, which I think kind of just becomes a bit pointless. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't give her a chance, and that a lot of their opinions are formed around the one song that they probably heard back in God, when did Suicide Squad come out? Talking about Bad Guy. I think that's why everybody forms their opinions of Billie, or at least people who've given her the one chance, and that's it. So I think really from this, it really tells us that opinions fall into two categories, and this is the people that like her because of her music and because of the way it feels to them, how soothing it is, how it makes them feel heard, and stuff along those lines, or the people that just don't like her, and because of her music and because she's famous. And I think again, you kind of need to form a bigger opinion. There is from this people who don't like her because of her style of music, and that's okay. You're not entitled to, or you don't have to like every single genre of music, and it's okay to disagree with people. Again, going back to Reddit, you see a lot of these echo chamber type mentalities where people will be back and forth in the comments, sort of arguing about it, and it's very much like you can have an opinion, but just be nice about it. Don't start saying she's crap. But really from this, I wanted to look at my own opinions and sort of form my reasons for why I think Billie is popular. And so I listened to her albums while commuting. I think personally for me, the first album especially feels very sort of like understated with the production and the lyrics, very sort of personal, and sort of less like a product and more just like a nice thing that somebody's made creatively. I think that the main reason people have this sort of opinion that she's muffly and has this sort of like you can't understand her kind of lyrics. It brings me to this thing that people must just think this because of Bad Guy. And the reason I say this is because I literally didn't struggle with any of the songs on the album, and obviously Bad Guy being the most popular, I can understand that this is kind of the opinion that's been left over for years by now and stuff like that. But I think personally a voice is quite ethereal. I mean, looking at this second and third album, the development there is crazy, and I think this sort of new wave of popularity is very much based around that and her development and how she's sort of grown as a musician. And I think that seeing that in real time is pretty great. I do think the first album is more edgy, and I think that sort of harks back to the edgier side of just about everything in 2016, sort of that era where everything was just a bit like over the top. But yeah, I mean, as I said, the development toward her, even her newest album, is just insane, and shows a clear sense of maturity, which I think a lot of people that are now growing up and sort of having their own struggles and things like that, I think it definitely is sort of capturing this big audience of people, not just Gen Z, but people who are struggling in life, and people who just want something to, maybe as a bit of escapism or as a bit of something relatable that they can sort of put their hopes into. Again, I can't, as I mentioned in the introduction, I can't really resonate with a lot of the issues here because unfortunately, or fortunately for whoever, I'm not a woman, so I can't really I can't resonate with the ideas, but I can understand them to an extent, and I get the point, and I quite appreciate, to be fair, that these messages are being put across in popular music. I think it's important that we talk about these things. Again, especially with themes of love and relationships, I think sometimes these issues can be quite taboo, and that a lot of people don't want to talk about them. And I think it's good that, especially like younger audiences, are getting this voice behind them. I think as well the songs feel like a bit more of a love letter from someone famous. You never get the impression that Billie is somebody that is what's the word? She doesn't feel forced or fabricated, or, you know, like some corporate higher up is saying, this is the message you need to get across because this is what the people want right now. It's very much Billie understands what people are going through because she might be going through it herself or past experiences or whatever, and she's sort of then giving that to people. And I think that's nice. I think it's a big draw for me anyway. It makes it feel very personal, very down to earth, I think. Again, I mean, in terms of the music itself, I think there's a big point I've kind of skipped over, is that there's a lot to love here. There's a lot of, I mean, as a, you know, musician myself, it's very much like great guitars, great synths, great bass, great drums, the production, and I think that's hard to deny a brother's influence as well on the music. But I think it comes back to my core message here is that you should really just be honest with your opinions. But I think the reason I've sort of come to that from this video is that Billie is unapologetically honest about body issues, sexuality, relationships, love, anything, and it never feels forced or false. So I think really I have to get to the nitty-gritty of my own opinion. And I love her recent music, but I'm not too much of a fan of her older work. Musically, I think it's got some good themes, but I don't enjoy the music personally. That's not to say it's bad. I do think it's good music, but it's just not for me. And I think, again, that's my whole point, is that there's reasons people like Billie Eilish. I don't agree with all of them, but I agree with the vast majority of them and the general sort of themes and that sort of thing. And I think it's good to have your own opinions, like we've seen with people on Reddit. I know news articles are kind of a bit of a sore subject because you can't really tell whose opinion is actually being portrayed in the writing. Is it the author of the post, or is it the company or publisher? But you know, I think I invite criticism to myself for saying that, and maybe there's a lot of criticism that people have of this video of not being in depth enough and not you know, really looking at more sources and unbiased sources of information especially, and I think that's reasonable. I think obviously the limitations with this video are really that I can't spend all day on this because I do work a full-time job, and it's just something I wanted to do out of interest for, you know, why do people like it and why is there such a harsh criticism of Billie on the other end of the spectrum. And again, I'm not making this video to get a rise out of people. I know people will disagree with my opinions or disagree with the way I've gone about this video, but I think that I'm just doing it to be as honest as possible in my opinions, and that I believe everybody else should be as honest as they can be, because again, the main takeaway from Billie's music is that you should be honest, and it's good to be honest, and that it doesn't hurt to do that. Again, I love the music. I just love everything about the recent album. Lunch, Birds of a Feather, Chihiro, everything is just fantastic. The way that the album flows, I'm very much a fan of, you know, I said about King Gizzard and the way that songs interlink and all the rest of it, and I think that's just fantastic musically. But yeah, I invite you all to have your own discussion in the comments. Again, keep it civil. I know I've sort of touched on a few more personal topics here with you know, mental health and things like that, and I think just as long as you guys are nice and calm in the comment section, that would be much appreciated. But yeah, I think really the message of the video boils down to people like her because it's good music. It appeals to them in a variety of ways, including being you know, something of a love letter to mental health and to people, and to sort of soothe them in their times of need. And I think really that's what we need, just a bit of escapism in the world never hurts, and the more honest it feels, I think the better, to be honest. But yeah, I've got nothing else to say. I've rambled on for 20 minutes, and yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching. Peace.